I recorded an entire video on this, 30 minutes. 30 minutes of me talking. And my computer didn't save it. And I'm pissed, bro. I'm so mad. Because it was a good video. Like, I was fire. I was doing like some goofy stuff with the cameras. It was very good. It's hard to replicate. Today we were drinking coffee and explaining alchemy. Because I wanted to speak on these notes before, whatever. I read this stuff a few days ago. So, this is the end of the Jungian alchemy, and now we talk about real alchemy. This is just some general stuff with it. So I'm going to be explaining the Prima, materia, just the basic understanding of what alchemy is. Talk about the Tria materia, or the Tria Prima, the three elements and breaking down what they do and stuff. And then we're going to break down how they affect your life and stuff like that, explain transmutation, a few quotes from famous people on this stuff. So you could get a better understanding. And we'll explain the homunculus, which is the most commonly understood thing in alchemy, which is the most ridiculous and weird thing. A quick note on alchemy. Alchemy is a study of the process of turning lead or other invaluable metals to gold. Or at least, that's the allegorical front. In reality, it's early study on self-improvement and creativity and achieving one's highest potential. The moving of one's lower, base, animalistic self to a higher self. What does this mean? What is the lower self, right? Well, it's your current self. If you're controlled by animal nature, then that's your lower self, right? Or just presently you. So what's your higher self? It's you in 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, when you did everything right? And I'm stealing this, but it's pretty much like if you were to have a conversation with your ideal future self, he's getting out of the Ferrari, whatever. How would he be feeling about the things that you do, right? What would he be telling you? Stuff like that. But you're getting to that state, getting to that person, right? Of the maximum potential that you can be achieving. Early magic was in part psychology, and thus, Jung, a heavily studied man in the mysticism world, was the first to introduce the findings of psychologists before psychology was science. So, when it's magic, it's alchemy, and when it's science, it's psychology. Right? Because what else would they call the understanding of the unconscious mind, right? It was magical people, the medicine man, that would explain to you what your dream meant. It's actually pretty good. I didn't get any grounds in it today. I normally have grounds in my coffee. The achievement of the highest status of alchemy is the magnum opus, or great work, also called the Philosopher's Stone. It's also referred to as Azoth. That's like the Arab word for it. This is the goal of alchemy, the item that transmutates lead to gold and creates the elixir of life. Now, I listed the 4 steps, the 4 phases that someone must go through, and go through again and again in my other video, right? Because you don't get this once and then that's just like you're set and stuff, you have to maintain it. So the other video on the Jungian alchemy stuff, it's before this, right? And that's Jungian, that's not the traditional, but it's like about the same. Like, he puts some of his own terms into it and stuff, but it's fairly similar. According to nearly every alchemist, this practice is not for everyone. Michael Meyer, founder of Rosicrucianism, which apparently Michael Meyer said this, but then also I looked up the quote, and it just came up with Jung saying it, so I don't know. The philosophers have said, no one can attain the science of the spiritual unless his soul be divine and his nativity spiritual. Scientia Spiritualis is the alchemical opus. Guys, chill out on me with my pronunciation. I don't speak Latin. I never learned Latin. I've only read these words. So, spiritual nativity refers to the horoscope, which I don't really believe in, but I would assume is rather the numerology attributes of the numbers 7 or 5. 7 is spiritual insight, thinker, right? Kind of genius. It's like that. The philosopher. That's the archetype of the 7. The philosopher. You're a loner, thinker. And 5 is earth, water, air, fire, and spirit, ether. Which pretty much just means that you're very well-rounded, is what it is, with your insights and stuff. The point is not anyone can utilize this practice. It is believed that some are led to it, selected based upon their alignment of the Tria Prima. The Prima materia is the base elements. It means base matter. It is 3 elements: salt, mercury, and sulfur. Salt is the physical, right? Salt is like solid things. They're gonna wither away with time, right? But it's a solid physical object. It's corrosive though. Sulfur is combustible, right? So it's like things that'll explode. And then mercury is liquid. And it was believed that everything was made of these 3 elements, which 2 of them are still on the periodic table today, right? So, to break this down, and this chart, you could find it, it's not that hard to find. The prima materia goes into 2 different categories: fixed and volatile. Under fixed is earth and water. That's what salt was supposed to be made of, right? Under volatile is air and fire, and that's what sulfur was supposed to be made of. And with the middle section, water and air create mercury, right, which is the fluid things. So salt, solid, permanent things, hence why it is under fixed and made of earth and water. It is solid, but will wither away with time. It's corrosive, like I said. Mercury, fluid and changeable things that adapt to spaces. Hence, it is the mix of fixed and volatile, right? Because water it's partially volatile, but it's partially also fixed. I kind of just said that. It really didn't help, did it? But you understand. Sulfur, combustible things were said to be made of sulfur, as combustion is ultimate volatility. Of course, this excludes the 5th element, spirit. Spirit is not a base matter that makes up all things, but is rather a gift from God to his highest creations. Kind of stuffy right now, sorry if you can hear this. My bad. So, what is the spiritual understanding of the Tria Prima, right? The 3 base elements that are said to make up all things. Also, Paracelsus believed that certain things were made up of. He believed that every metal was a combination of a certain ratio of, I want to say sulfur and mercury, but I feel like it's salt and mercury. Yeah, but he thought it was a certain ratio. Like you just change the ratio and it changed metals. So the picture that I'm going to be referencing here is the thumbnail. You could look it up and find it. It's just literally look up alchemy and it'll pop up. So at the top left is the anima. Anima is the Latin for soul. It's sulfur. That's what it is. That's the corresponding element. It's the astral flame, the fire of life, emotional charge, and spiritual feeling, right? Your soul. Pretty much every mystery school ever is taught that there's a difference in the intellect between your mind and your soul, that they're separate things, that, yeah, they work together, right? And alchemy teaches that the mind is the connection between the soul and the body. Very interesting stuff, very strange. But spiritus at the top right. Latin for spirit, sometimes translated to mind. Oh wait, let me go back. Pythagoras was a big on separate intellect. Anyways, Latin for spirit, sometimes translated to mind. Flexible and changing, and thus is fluid. You know? This is where thought occurs. So feeling would be in your soul, and thought would be in your mind. Like mental feeling would be in your soul. Thought would be in your mind, and then physical feeling would be in your body. It's the bridge between the mind of the body and the soul. And it is tied to Mercury, because it's the fluid, it's going between, stuff like that, it's changing. Corpus is the bottom one. It means body in Latin, and it corresponds to salt. Responsible for animal nature, the reason that we will always fall into it. And this is below, the low. So I showed this earlier, the hermetic axiom of as above, so below, which is a huge thing in Freemasonry. How does this tie to this? Well, above is sulfur, your anima, your spirit, right? Which anima and Jungian understanding is very different. I'll do a video on anima explaining it sooner or later, but very different thing. And this is also what the Freemasonic emblem is, bro. A triangle pointing up and one pointing below. As above, so below. Pretty much every mystery school is kind of big on this hermetic axiom. It's like, this is why they're all saying, don't nut. This is why they're all saying it. Because they're all huge on a lot of, which Schopenhauer talked about this as well. Many people do. The idea that you have a lot of energy below, a lot of energy in your body because you're horny, and because. So, we need to go into evolutionary psychology a bit here. When you're hungry, when you're horny, when you're anxious, all these things produce. When you're angry, all these things produce a lot of energy in your body, and thus a lot of energy in your mind. But we can't make ourselves constantly fearful, and we shouldn't, nor shall we make ourselves constantly angry, right? But horniness is like the easiest to manipulate, bro. Schopenhauer said sexual energy, libido, is the will of the universe, right? Because it transmutates to psychic energy. That's it. Okay? And this is why I'm big on the conspiracy that our minds are kind of programmed to feel this level of depraved, like, I don't think that man is naturally this horny, bro. I don't believe it. I think that we're programmed to be this way. You look at television and it's like, oh, very attractive women and stuff in scanty clad clothing. And then I think that it just, they build it up to you, because how often are you seeing that stuff in the natural world? And if you're seeing it often in the natural world, then it's like, that's your day-to-day. Like, it's very normal stuff, but when it's like, no, this is bad, and then it's like, oh, but look, it's like, sparks something in your mind, and then you get programmed to be sexually degenerate, and then look at society, And I heard this, I don't know how I feel about it, that, porn was trafficked into Berlin after World War I, and thus it created the sexual degeneracy going on in the city, which then destroyed families, which then destroyed the economy, simultaneously, actually, because people just, they didn't want to work as hard. It ruined everything, Anyway, sorry, it's kind of a side note. Above is sulfur, your anima. In the middle is Mercury, your spirit, and below is your body, salt. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Your body feels good, your soul feels good. And thus, so does your mind. Your mind can look at things and say, oh, it's so nice. And then your soul is like, we're nourished right now. Your body feels terrible. Your mind looks, this is terrible. Your soul feels, this is awful. And depression, kill yourself. So what are the metaphorical meanings of these things? Well, sulfur's aspect of matter is flammable. Its alchemy element is fire. In human nature, it is the spirit. In the Holy Trinity, it's the Holy Spirit. Aspect of the psyche is the superego, and the existential realm is spiritual. I think it's interesting. Manly P. Hall does this too, where he breaks down where it goes in the Trinity. And I think that's just a bizarre thing, but it's very interesting. Mercury's aspect of matter is volatile. Its alchemy element is air. Human nature, it's the mind. Holy Trinity, it's the Father. In the psyche, it's the ego. Its existential realm is mental. Salt is aspect of matter, solid. The alchemy element is earth and water. In human nature, it represents the body. In the Holy Trinity, it's the sun. Aspect of the psyche, it's the id. Existential realm, it's physical, right? So, why the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? The Father, that's kind of hard to break down exactly why that would be. I don't really understand fully. Now, what I can say about the Holy Spirit being sulfur is the Holy Spirit is responsible for vague feelings in Christianity. And your emotional charge and your feeling, right? And what is emotional charge? It's the spark. It's that flame within you. I need to do this right now. This is not right. All this stuff, it's that feeling within you. So it makes a lot of sense. Why is salt the sun? Because it incarnated, right? Perhaps. Mercury is the Father because it's the thought and the law and stuff like that your mind is coming up with. Does your soul come up with the law, or does your soul just reflect how well you're doing with the law, right? When I say the law, I mean morality, right? Your morals of how you're living your life. The soul is the responder, and your mind creates the law. Does that make sense? What is transmutation? I say it all the time. I bring it up all the time in my videos. Trans, meaning across, and mutatio, meaning change. Transforming something from one substance to another. This is where the layman's understanding of alchemy is derived from. This idea of alchemist's fixation on transmutating lead to gold. It's a very simple principle. It's really just taking something from its worse version of itself and transmutating it to better. Really, what you should take away from alchemy is that you're utilizing every part of the psyche that you may have viewed as bad, evil, negative, and making it good and helpful and gold and beautiful. And not that you're imagining, oh, it's okay that I'm like this, you know. It's not like I love this person for their flaws. Like, no, it's actually taking the thing and putting it towards good objectively. Okay. It's a quote. I don't know who from. In this art, which comes from God, no sensual, wicked, or infernal spirits are admitted, but only simple, straight, true, and steadfast spirit, whose essence is pure and devout. All others misunderstand the mystery. Bam! Look at how many sections I have in this book, bro. I haven't even labeled all of them. Some of them have subsections too. What you should take away is that if you're not looking at things very differently, if you're not finding yourself in a very creative, productive state, then you didn't do alchemy right, bro. And if it's not goodness that you're generating, you didn't do it right. You know? And this stuff is complex. Like, I'm covering very baseline. Oh, I still have to talk about the homunculus too. I didn't write about it in my notes. It's not really something that I consider worth taking notes on. It's like insanity. But, yeah, if you're not finding yourself utilizing the worst parts of yourself for the positive, then you didn't do it right. You know? So why does achieving the magnum opus have to do with individuation and Jung, right? What is individuation? What does that mean in Jungian understanding? It is the creation, not really the creation, it's more so transferring your unconscious contents of your mind to your conscious. Well, when you do that, you can utilize them all for good rather than having the daemon, look at the daemon video, rather than having the daemon manipulating you, it's serving you now. So why do I reference God? Well, every mystery school believes in God, bro. Everyone who studies this stuff believes in God. And yeah, some of them are like Gnostics and they're weird and they're like, well, there's an evil God and a good God, or they're like the demiurge or something. But they all acknowledge it, you know. If you're into alchemy and stuff like that, you know that there's a little bit more to this than the nihilist might admit. The nihilist might be okay with admitting, you know. Realize that things are a bit more complex. So what's the homunculus? Well, for whatever reason, alchemists have had an obsession with creating life for so long, especially early Muslim alchemists. This is where the whole thing of Yaqub creating the white race comes from. Who knows, bro? Who knows if that happened? But it's supposed to be like Yaqub created the white race in a laboratory on the Galapagos Islands or something, and then we got released, and now we're just here. Something like that. I don't know. Yaqub creating Aryans. Bizarre. Dude, I don't know if I'm Aryan or not. I don't really know what qualifies someone. Like, my eyes are blue. Right, but then, like, my hair is kind of brown. Yeah, but dude, I look so much more white on camera than I do normally. Anyways, so they've had this obsession, and Paracelsus claimed that he created a small human. The homunculus is supposed to be like life created in a laboratory, like a tiny creation beyond just the womb and stuff like that. He says that when you plant the man's seed into a horse and feed it a plethora of human blood, it will create a tiny human thing. A tiny humanoid creature. I remember I was texting this home a few months back, and I just randomly texted her homunculus. And I'm like, what the fuck is the homunculus? I just remembered that it was a word. It existed in my unconscious. And then I look it up and I'm like, yo, I forgot, bro. Yeah, it's the most bizarre, kind of terrible thing I've ever heard of. But, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys can understand a bit better. Sorry, this video wasn't like, I don't know, there's a lot more to talk about, is the thing. But I got other things to do. I'm about to write an essay on gnosis and what it means, all that stuff. So, it should be interesting. I'm going to start uploading essays to Medium, that one website, because I need to build my portfolio. So, yeah. Appreciate the listen. Let me know any comments below.